No, Verna's, I think she's coming down.
So
So the reason we went, and hopefully Verna will come during this, the reason we went was the trust committee is looking at us partnering with a parish in Tanzania. And so we were given the Mande parish. If I could use this well, I don't know if I'm smart enough to make this work super well. Pastor Emmanuel is this fellow here. You can kind of see him.
The vase on the table?
That one right there, yeah, right. That one right there. That's Pastor Emmanuel.
With the clergy collar.
Yes, with the clergy collar on. And I did have another picture that I pulled up from where we were all sitting on the steps, but it's so fuzzy, this was a better choice. But Pastor Emmanuel serves this one, and he has an associate pastor who I don't think we met. There are 2 churches in the Mande parish. Many of the churches, because they're so big, they gain a second church, they build a second church, like the second church here is like 20, 25 miles away, yeah?
Is that the first picture, not my next one, first picture, avocados?
Yes, and we'll get to that. I just started Verna because I didn't know how long to wait. But anyway, so Pastor Emmanuel serves this one and a secondary parish. And so they have 3 worship services on Sunday morning. One at like 7:30. And then the one we went to was, they have a 9 o'clock and an 11 o'clock at this church. And each service, I believe at each church has about 200 to 300 people attend. And they walk. There's not really parking. So they walk, and the building was full. I mean, we had 2 services. We did not stay for the first service at the alternate parish. We went there, checked in, said hello, and Pastor Emmanuel took us back to this building where we had the second one. And so the church itself, I'll show you on the next page. I'll go back and forth between these because I'm not sure exactly. The interior looks more like this, and they did ask me to preach. So when you preach in a foreign language, you have a translator next to you. The first service, a guy who was a bishop's associate translated. He was much quicker, and I think they got it more because they laughed. Like, I tried to make them laugh. And when Pastor Emmanuel did it, he was very, I think, probably more straight across, like word for word, so the nuance was kind of lost, and they only laughed once. This is the interior of the parish, and you can see up here there's a balcony all the way around, and it was not full that I could tell, but the bottom was completely full, and every one of these churches, I think birth control is not a big thing there. They have like a lot of kids, like probably 100 to 150 kids. And they sit mostly together. They don't sit with their parents, but they sit in rows by themselves and they behave.
almost like they were in Sunday school.
Yes, almost like this was Sunday school, yeah. So on Saturday night, when we got there on Saturday, let me get back here. This group here, down on the bottom left, that was their Sunday school. They were there for Sunday school, which they do on Saturday night. They call it children's education, youth education.
I think they're for a couple of hours.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 hours, and they feed them supper.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so like we used to have midweek stuff or Wednesday night stuff. This is theirs, and they do it on Saturday night. And there's not a lot of adults, but these kids are well behaved. And the building, which I don't have a picture of, and I didn't see you send one, they are building to, so this building, you're facing it, you're looking east. To the right of it on the south is a big building, an edifice they're building that is an education center. And so they have a day preschool that seemed loose to me, but she probably had 40 kids in it. And they also typically walk there together. So little people, everybody walks everywhere, and even little people know to walk by themselves to places in little packs. There's like 3 or 4 that will walk together. And so they're building this big edifice that is going to be their education center. So when you see us eating down here on the right, they had one room that was their reception room for food, and it had plastic bunting, I guess would be the word, around the walls, and the tables were covered in it, and the chairs were nice. And then they had a little serving table on the right. But there was a group of women who out beside this first upper left building on the right, they had a little set of huts and they cooked over there. That was their kitchen, their outside kitchen. And they cooked for the pastor every day and make his meals for lunch. And they just had a little group of women. That was their thing, was they cooked. And then behind this is a visitor's house that was not quite complete, which was what we used for restroom facilities because they were indoor plumbing. And they let us use that. Yeah.
Why all the plastic?
So that it didn't look like concrete.
Oh,
It's their way of making it pretty.
okay.
Yeah.
There's one little room in this concrete building that they took us into.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting because you think, here's this big concrete structure with several pillars, but then they hung a little drape-like so that we could sit in there.
So
and
it'd
eat.
be prettier.
Yeah, so it was a little more comfy, I guess you could
Yeah.
call it. But the little kids just came right in and sat with us and talked with us. It was just amazing how they
Yeah.
greeted you and made it feel like it was home, although it was just a big concrete structure.
And this room with the orchid up there, they had finished the walls in that. And they had plastered it and painted it white, and it looked like a regular room you would have in your house with nice couches and a coffee table. Nothing covering the windows, which I think is typical. But it's where they housed us when we weren't eating and we were at the church.
It was kind of like a patio room, I felt, with the big windows, open space, and with all the,
Yeah.
the comfy inside.
Yeah, so, but the Monday Parish is what they're hoping that we would partner with. I don't know how to describe, we don't really have enough of a relationship with them to know what that would look like. In worship, they gave me a paper, so I was helping with worship, as you saw here, and in the middle of worship, Pastor Emmanuel hands me this paper and says, read this. And I'm like, oh, it's a blessing, I'll get to do a blessing. And I start reading it, it is yes, we agree to this, and this, and I was like, I can't do this here. So I just told them, I said, Pastor Emmanuel has offered me a wonderful covenant, but as the Trinity is about perfect relationship, we need to develop our relationship before we agree to this. So I said, I'll take this back to our people and we'll talk about it and see what that looks like. And Martin Malley, I think as I told you last week, had said that we needed to know more about and relate to, not just Verna and I, but more of us be in relationship. So relationships can look like pen pals with people in the congregation. It can look like knowing what their projects are and sending money. It can look like us going to visit and just getting to know different people, to be friendly and have more of a relationship. Innocent, who we stayed with, has emailed, and I've emailed him. Pastor Emmanuel and I are connecting by WhatsApp, so that's been helpful, but nothing of substance, just kind of, how's Easter? So that's kind of where we're at. So do you want to say more about worship or any of that?
Oh, I just think music was a big part of it too. They did a lot of, the choirs sang, they had a women's choir, a men's choir, and then they all sang together. And then they had this marvelous, I'd say, Maasai
It
group.
was a Maasai group. And I can't
Came in
remember.
and did the drums and performed for us basically, but music was a big, big part of their service. And the little kids are dancing, they're dancing all the time to this music. Yeah, it's just a fabulous
It's a much
ceremony.
freer service.
It's a ceremony, basically,
Yeah. And the Maasai met us, was it before the first worship or between the worships?
between the worship.
Yeah, so between the two later worships at this parish home, we were greeted by some Maasai who are the ones from whom this parish draws. And they did a dance for us in this very small space. And I didn't have my phone with me, I'd already put it away because we'd already had worship. So I think Bill has pictures of
I have
them,
some
and you have some pictures of them too. But they did this dance for us outside, and then they were welcomed in right after the first offering, right? And they did a dance in worship. So they always do two offerings. One is your tithe, and one is your blessing offering for the week. So Sometimes they name the second one as we're gonna work on paying for this or that. One of the parishes we went to, the pastor said, thank you for buying me new tires last week. That funding that you gave in the offering bought me new tires, so now I can still visit people. But the first one is always your tithe, and they have a series of envelopes that are in a case, I don't know the right word, like our brochure cabinets, you know, little lines, and it has a number under it, which is, so you might be number 7, you might be number 43. There's an envelope at those, and you are expected to put your tithe in there each week and put it in the first offering. And then they record that and put your envelope back outside. And when you get behind, then after worship, people bring goodies, or like if I have an extra chicken, or I have a bundle of bananas, or I have 2 tomatoes that I'm not gonna eat this week, I put that out for auction, and then whoever bids that, they direct who that goes to. So Verna's behind on hers, and she brings a bundle of bananas and people buy it. That money goes towards her tithe. But if Verna has bananas and she's not gonna eat them, and I'm behind on my tithe, Verna can say, when this goes, this will be for Amy's tithe because I don't need it. And so you can help your neighbor that way. So like we were given stuff, and I just gave it to poor people in the congregation. So there was a grandmother who didn't have food, and I don't know what I got, some kind of greens or something. Yeah. There was 2 or 3 things that were given to us, and I just said, please give them to people who, and Pastor Emmanuel said, you have to name it. And I said, well, tell me a name. And so he's like, let go, you know, but they do that after worship, and everybody stays. It's not like anybody leaves, so they all know if I'm behind on my tithe, but also, it's not a shame thing. I don't feel like there's any shame around it. It's like we need to help each other, and I have extra, so I can give extra.
It's like a huge community.
Yes.
And they just all share.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really fabulous.
It's really interesting and very different than what we do. Yeah, Nancy?
Did you get the feeling that all this extra music stuff was because you were there? Or
No.
That was the normal?
No, I think it's normal. Nobody seemed like it was abnormal. And Innocent said, yeah, they do choirs, they do 2 or 3, but their worship is usually 2 hours long, or an hour and a half to hour and 45. So between services, usually only about 10 to 15 minutes. And I don't think we would appreciate having it 2 hours. They also thought my sermon was short. I was told that several times, and I thought it was pretty long for not having any prep and not knowing the language, you know. I'm like, what? So,
She did very well.
yeah, it went okay. Yeah, other questions about this? So then after worship, let's see if it'll switch for me. There we go. They took us to the house where we were going to stay, and this was on Sunday. Well, Saturday we went here. And so the roads, I wanted to give you a sense of the roads. They're rustic, they're not horrific, and these had just been redone, so they weren't full of ruts and washout and that kind of thing.
They had rocks in them.
They had rocks. They were concerned everywhere Verna walked. They wanted to hold her hands and all. She's like, I got this. And they're like her feet are much smaller than our big walking feet. But anyway, so we would drive down these in buses. We would drive down these in our safari vehicles. We would drive down these in regular road vehicles. And they go everywhere. But the one on the far right, okay, so you see in the middle, the one with the wall on it, there's probably a house or a field up there that they're keeping the dirt in. And there's these kinds of walls, and many of them much more ornate than this. Like they'll have pretty grouting, or they'll have flowers coming out, or they'll have water spouts. This had some holes in it, but it have water spouts that are decorative. Nothing is like taken for granted and just ugly. Which is why I think the plastic around the room, they didn't want us to eat in an ugly, unfinished room. And it wasn't just for us, other guests also eat there. Yeah.
What was behind the walls?
So this wall looks like, to me, it has dirt right behind it, and it's like they just elevated and made a, what do you call it when you do an erosion? A terrace, thank you. So this to me looks like a terrace road. Some of them this would just be a wall to keep people out. So there would be flat land at the bottom of the wall, and there would be a big, huge, that's what we're getting to. So you see this far right one, That is so steep, the bushes on the left, that row of hedge on the left is probably 8 foot tall, okay? And you can see there's a house there. So when they told us they would not drive down there, it was so steep, it was probably a 40-degree grade. It was very, very steep. You can tell there have been things down there. You can see, but they had Biagés that we saw go up and down, which are the little motorcycles with back covering, like a motorcycle with a cart on the back, only it has a roof that people can sit in, or they can transport stuff. So it looks to me like that's what was down here. But then when we got to the bottom of it, this was what we saw. This house is at the end of this or in the middle of this very rustic road. And so the road itself is probably equal to the second half of the upper story. Yeah, and we could not see the roof of the house from the road because of trees. So packed between the house and like maybe from here to here is this huge group of trees that keep you from seeing it from the road. And so this beautiful, beautiful house that looks like it would fit in the Dundee area. I mean, it was gorgeous. This is the side of it. There's only about from me to Jeff on the front yard. So I couldn't get back far enough to take a proper picture. This is as far back as I could be and get as most of it in there. So it's very packed in this small space. And then you see this living room or the dining room, and back here you see there's a sink. Every time you eat, you are supposed to wash your hands first, and if you don't, it's offensive. So they have a built-in sink, even though the kitchen is right over here and to the right of that picture. You have to wash your hands in that sink before you eat. It's a thing. Yeah, so this house was built in order for the men of this family to have a gathering annually. There were 4 very large, all have ensuite bathrooms, so you had your own private bathroom with each bedroom. The kitchen, the dining room were huge. There was an extra alcove upstairs that someone could sleep in, and they had put bunk beds in. Yeah.
I think they also had like family reunions.
Family reunions, yeah.
But it was just mainly an extra house for the family.
Yes, it was an extra house. So the rest of the family lived in the upper left. So this house that we were in was not used year round. This is where they lived. This was Grandma's house and the aunts of, in innocence, the sister of the woman who was helping us. And this is their yard area. So these are the people down below who all live in that house except for you and
Innocent is our main person.
Yeah, Innocent spoke excellent English, and he was our main contact in this family group.
And this was Grandma, who lived in the house next door. And this was the little baby of the grandchild.
They lived in the second little house up
Second
there.
little house.
Yeah.
And I think this is the chickens.
Goats, those are the goats.
Those are the goats.
Yep.
Okay.
And the goats are like, 15 feet from the front of this beautiful house. It's just very interesting. And the chickens roam,
It
yeah.
was all in such a little complex that you think, how did they work that in there? How did they even get the materials down there?
Yeah, how did you, yeah,
Whoa, because that road was steep.
yes,
It was super steep.
yeah. And so the crowding around of the banana trees and the plantation that's right there was part of what I was trying to capture in these pictures, to show you that they just live so completely with the land. I've said over and over, this is such a blend of primitive and first world, right? Because in the house we stayed in, they paid for water and electricity while we were there. And they do that on a card, like a prepaid phone card. So when your card runs out, it's off. You don't have any more water, you don't have any more electric until you charge your card again. Yeah. And they cooked down, you see where the bananas are in the middle, that little orange cup and things? They cooked down here for us. And then they also cooked, I think, in the first house there, in Grandma's house. And I think she had electricity year round because she had a refrigerator.
Right.
So, thoughts or questions? Yeah.
How would they have power?
They have electricity. There's power lines that run up and down the road. And just like here. Yeah, it's very unique to me because it's so primitive in so many ways. And just like down the road here, we went for a walk. There were people who lived in huts,
Oh, my
you know,
goodness.
grass huts, bamboo huts. And so it's not like everybody has this kind of opulence, but most of the people, like you saw the Habitat houses last week, the Homes for Health, those are houses that are more of a norm because people have tried to help people build houses that are solid structures. But again, if this were to fall down, if this beautiful, beautiful home were to have a huge issue, you have to get like we saw a house that it looks like ancient labyrinth from the road, right? There's all this footprint. And I said, what's that? I said, oh, and Innocent said, oh, they're building, or maybe somebody else said they're building that house and they've been working on it about 15 years. So instead of taking a loan, nobody takes a loan there. You get $10 and you go buy 5 bricks and you add them to your house until it's done. There's no loans, that kind of infrastructure doesn't exist, not well. And so we saw lots of structures that were being built, and good gravy, our OSHA would have a fit. They had like bamboo scaffolding, and we saw people up there with stuff that the scaffolding is bending because it's so heavy what they're carrying, and they're just walking around like, you know, this is just normal. And I'm like, oh, no helmets, no, ropes to hold on.
Bamboo is extremely strong, but I know I saw pictures in China, multi-stories.
Yep, that's what we're talking.
Stories of,
Yep.
50 feet up, and they're using bamboo.
Yep. And when you carry a pack of 150 pounds on you, and you and your buddy are both carrying one, it's like, wow.
So
they just do it, yeah.
Maybe you said this last week before I got here. What are people doing are these people, do they have a job? Or do they just sustain themselves?
I asked
on
that
a
question a
daily-
lot. This family in particular has this plantation, and they have a banana grove around it. And they have
Okay, so
people
they're
who
farmers.
work that for them. That's Grandma, and previously Grandpa, and the kids who she birthed. And I think there were 6 of them she had. And then some of their grandkids and great-grands stay on the land and help. But others have gone to the city and have gotten jobs, like Innocent's mom works in an office, and his dad is in a healthcare facility. He had some kind of accident and is in long-term care. So, and that I don't think is paid for by people. I think that's social medicine.
Right.
Yeah. So there's not a concern that they're going to run out of money because Grandpa has high needs.
Right.
So it's a very different system. But yes, I wondered a lot what people did for money. I think there's a lot of barter that goes on, and I think also then they take stuff to the cities, and you'll see the banana market later, where they bring in trades and wares and they sell everything.
Yes.
That's a good question though, because I was also like, where does your economy come from? It's like they're transitioning from bartering and trade to a monetary system, but the monetary system is definitely not taken over. It's a both and. Yeah. So then we got to go have fun.
Yeah.
So we went to the Ngorongoro conservation area, and these 2 down here, the one on the right, I need to get this thing off. Let's see. There you go. The one on the right is the actual area of the crater. And it comes out to be, and I wrote it on here somewhere, it's a natural crater that was created by the collapse of a volcano something million years ago. And so the volcano came, it did its thing, and then the miasma underneath heated it up enough that the mountains themselves fell in, the lava mountains fell in, and created a natural barrier around it. It's a caldera, is what it's called, and then as it cooled, the animals stayed in there. And the only animals that they say go in and out over the mountains are the female elephants. We don't know why.
It just happens.
But if you want to know more about it, I took pictures of the sign so that I could remember what that means. This is the 6th largest caldera in the world. And here we are greeted by baboons.
Oh my goodness, baboons all over the place. You have to be very cautious because they could be in your car, take whatever you had. They are very controlling.
crafty.
They know how to get a hold of things and take
Yeah.
care of them.
But from the road here, all the way to, like, when we came in and out, they were climbing around, babies. They're watching the vehicles coming in. So, we wanted to show you, and I did a lot of just pictures of people. So this is the actual overlook. I tried to show the slope of the mountains, the side of the volcanic leftovers. And then the Jeep down below in front of us is exactly like the one we're in. And I don't have a good picture of those, I should have found one, but the tops of them pop up and then you stand on the seats and look out so that you can see around. So this is when we're going down into the crater. But that crater is just huge and you can't see animals from up here.
If you have binoculars, you can see, but otherwise you can't see.
Yeah, and even the binoculars are just little specks.
Yeah.
So we are way high up here and I don't know how high. So this is when we got down to the bottom, and this is a bird picture. I tried to do groupings. But you see those weird things hanging off the acacia tree over there. Those are weaver nests, and so they're birds that weave nests that have different rooms in them. So they'll have like a room for eating, a room for babies, and a room for sleeping. That's how I understood them. And so, but they're everywhere. And so these little weaver birds, they're little like finches, only they're bigger than a hummingbird and smaller than a finch. So super cool, and you didn't see a lot of them, but you saw their nests. And then a group of flamingos there, a flock of flamingos. The bird down here in the middle is a crane. These over here are some kind of, yeah, the bottom is a flock of pelicans. I don't know what these ones up here are, other cranes. But there was a big marsh area before we got to the lake, and this is where they were. There was a serval in the, was it a serval? What was that little cat we saw there?
Oh, yeah.
I think it was a serval.
Yeah.
And Marty, who's been there 12 times, said this is the first time he's seen a serval down there. But it was in the grasses and really hard to get a good picture of, so I didn't try to put that up here.
Do you mind using the microphone?
Oh, no, I thought I was loud. So, yeah, but this is just a different birds that we saw down in the crater. But the big one in the upper middle is flamingos, and then the one at the bottom is pelicans, and then the others are cranes and some kind of running bird. And then the one on the left, the acacia tree, I just wanted you to see the weaver nests. So yeah.
Are those birds sleeping right there on the bottom?
No, I don't think so. They're sitting there. They may be on eggs. This is near water, but not in the water. And then, you want to talk about these?
Interesting, the birds that go around the elephants, and they also see them all on the back of the elephant. They just ride the elephant where the elephant wants to go. They don't care. And they're all around the feet of the elephant. It's interesting how they all go together. They all mingle together and never hurt one another.
Most of the animals have a sidekick animal. And
Yeah.
so like these birds take ticks and insects off of the elephants and keep them well. And I don't think the birds gain other than the bugs they eat from the elephant. But like Verna said, they travel around together. And down here, I took that picture and put it in because the diversity of nature is so amazing. So in this picture, you want to tell them all?
You see a hippo.
Yeah,
We have a hippo.
And then all the zebras.
Zebras.
And the wildebeest.
And the wildebeest, and then on the left, there's an eland, like third animal up on the left is the eland,
Oh, yeah.
which is a weird kind of cow antelope thing. And then there's the little antelope, the little baby ones. There's one on the right, but it's hard to see in this picture. But the diversity that lives together, it just struck me with all of our conversation about how diversity isn't necessary or part of reality. It's not true. I mean, this is just nature showing us that diversity lives together in its natural state. Because these animal needs different food, they have different sleep needs, they have different migration patterns, they have different social norms, but they all live together. And I thought that was a super cool representation of that. There's an elephant off to the left in the back that's not in this picture. So there's elephants that are part of this group. And then there were Pumbas, what are they called? What's a Pumbaa? What's the, what?
Warthog?
Warthog, yes, warthogs were also, you can't really see them anymore. Pumbaa actually means warthog in Swahili. So, but they're in this picture that you can't really tell because my camera's not that good. But there's every little beastie to big beastie that lives, and they all live together in harmony, yeah.
So is this right by a pond or a river?
There was a stream up to the left, probably,
I mean, I guess
1,000
a
feet to
hippo's
the
not
left.
gonna be far from.
Right, but he actually was out further than anybody thought he would be. Yeah.
That's
And-
why it was so strange to see him
Yes.
out there. It's like, whoa, I didn't know.
What's he doing out there? Yeah. Well, me and my buddies are walking along. And, yeah. So I just thought that was a huge representation of how diversity is natural and its interplay and its interactions is important. Let's see. Oh, this is just a mishmash of pictures.
So there, we weren't too far from the lake, because there again, you see the hippos in the lake. And the giraffes, they kind of stay on their own. They don't mingle too much with the rest of the animals. But boy, when you see them, you know that they're there.
They're majestic.
Very beautiful animals. There's a lion down in the bottom right-hand
Yeah.
corner, hiding in the bushes.
Yeah. And then we have, the middle is wildebeest and
Wildebeest
zebras.
and
And up
zebras.
on the right is and I can't think of what they're called, a group of hyenas.
Oh, yeah.
And they were eating a wildebeest carcass and fighting over it in the water. So they were making noises at each other and just wrestling, and I did not get a whole sense of what was going on, but some of the people were really into it and took videos. I was like, not my gig. But, yeah, and then you can see up on the hippos, up on the right are the flamingos. Yeah, this was just like this huge natural park that we would do as a reserve, but they just naturally have it. And then we left there and we went to the Serengeti. And some of these pictures are all out of order, kind of. But this was the entryway to the Serengeti. We did not drive under that. Nobody does, I don't think. But it's the old road that took you out onto the plain. So this is after we drove up out of the caldera and the crater. And all of these pictures were taken where we stayed, and I can't think of the name of that place. In Dutu, yeah. And so the picture of the zebras and the little deer over here, that's outside our front door where we stayed. And then there's a serval up on the, is that the right name?
It's a meerkat.
A meerkat, sorry. The meerkat comes in and sleeps in there. He's wild. He comes every night and visits, and nobody touches him. They don't feed him. He just comes in, checks out the people, and then leaves. And they said, don't bother him. He will bite.
That's the same
Yeah.
thing. He's
Yeah.
up on the rafter.
Yeah, and he comes in every night and just checks out the people. Most of these places don't have, like our bedrooms did, but most of the eateries and stuff don't have windows that close. They have wooden shutters they can put down, but they just don't ever close them. And there's not a lot of bugs. I mean, I don't think we had mosquito nets, but we didn't have to use them. Yeah. Yeah, so this was like the introduction to the Serengeti. And that's our
That's
hotel.
our
Right?
hotel.
Yeah.
We were on the left side, another group was on the other side.
Yeah, so there were two rooms here, the left and right side. We were the left side. And then these are
Out in the field behind, or when we walked out of our door, this is what we would see. And it was amazing at night, the way the sun would come down. Oh my,
Yeah.
just amazing how the acacia trees.
So this one on the bottom left is the sun coming up through the trees, or that moon coming up through the trees. That's not the sun.
Okay.
That's the moon. Yeah, it was just beautiful. Very clear, very quiet, no human noise. Every once in a while, we would hear an airplane. There was an airport nearby, that people could fly in and out. We took buses. Dusty buses. Okay, so then this was, we saw lions, and the pride on the bottom right, and the one on the bottom left, or center in the middle, on the bottom, that is the same pride. They had killed a wildebeest. The male lions eat first, then the female lions eat, then the cubs. And the ones on the right are satiated. This little guy down below, he's still hungry, so he is actually eating. I didn't give you my bloodiest picture because it's really gross, but he was eating, and I actually have a video of that. It was so interesting to watch him. He had there are probably 20 vehicles around these guys watching him. They don't give a care. They are absolutely, we don't threaten them. They don't care that we're there. They don't run away. They're not afraid of us. But we're just part of the landscape to them, which I found interesting. The one on the left we found later, he and his buddy, there were two of them under a tree, and they were just in a different part of the park.
Well, you'd be a snack if need be.
Yeah, I'd probably feed 2 cubs for a minute. Yeah. Giraffes are one of my favorites. They really do, the bottom in the middle, they really do kind of blend in and hide. If you don't know what you're seeing, at first I didn't see these, but then there's probably 8 of them in that area. The one up on the right is also part of that group. There's a group of them walking across the prairie there in the middle, and they're probably a mile from us. Yeah. And I think there were like 15 in that group. So they travel together, they work together, but they don't seem to have a social grouping the way the elephants do or the wildebeest. Then on the left, and the bottom right, those are both typical pictures. You see them, the trees, the acacia trees that they like to eat that are so tall up have huge thorns on them, and their heads go up above those thorny limbs, and they can eat in relative peace as long as somebody doesn't come and take them out at the knees. So, we had great guides who could tell us just about any question we asked. I'm going to do this one, it's lots of things.
Oh, the ostriches.
Yeah, we have the ostriches in the bottom.
And I'm trying to think of the name of them. Deer,
I can't, dictics,
Tic-tics,
yes, thank you.
yeah.
I
And
couldn't
the
come up with
ostriches,
it.
the ostriches in the middle.
And then the one up on the left is some kind of stork.
Right,
And then down to the right is another eland.
right, eland.
And then the upper left, you've heard of wadis, which are dry riverbeds. This is what a wadi looks like, and they use them as the guides use them as highways. Highways through the area. And so they know, and they have marked, not like physically, but they have in their head landmarks of where to go up onto the Serengeti out of the wadi. And so there were places that were pretty muddy that we crossed, and there were places that were pretty dry that we crossed and came back. But we went out for 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours, most times we went out. So we went out and we drove, we came back, we ate, and then we went back and drove again. So it was really cool to see different things at different times of the day, and yeah. And so the guides talk to each other like, cheetah in the tree at such and so latitude, longitude. And everybody zips over there, and there's 40, vehicles looking at the cheetah eating in a tree. So, which was kind of weird to me. I had not anticipated that. My first safari in South Africa was just us. We didn't, they talked to each other, but it wasn't like everybody converged on the same spot. But here they were all converging. And this is the cheetah eating in the tree. This is 2 different times a day. We went early and we went late, and he's eating a young wildebeest, and he's protected from other people, other predators.
He didn't care if we were there.
He did not give one hoot about us, yeah.
How could she even get in a tree?
They're very, so you see down below how long and lean their body is? Those claws are super sharp, and they climb up like using fingernails to get up there. Gaff slit is what like our climbers do for electric lines. They have little hooks on the bottom of their So this guy uses his natural hooks and climbs up there. He's strong, he's quick, and he's really supple. His backbone is not hard like ours. We can do a little bit, but he can ripple, you know. And so he can climb up there with a heavy, heavy beastie and eat what he wants, and then just drop it to the ground. Or he'll leave it up there and go get water or whatever and hope it's there when he comes back. But then there were 3 of them on the ground that weren't hungry that we saw somewhere else, and that was cool too. Okay.
Are they having problems with keeping cheetahs healthy there? Because I heard that they're like very uniform DNA structure.
I hadn't heard that, but these travel, I think they said 75 miles, 75 kilometers. Yeah, 150 kilometers, 75 miles. Yeah. So they have a very large range, so they may encounter from other places. They go up to Kenya and they go somewhere else, he was telling us, to the west. But, and then heffalumps. I love elephants. We saw this big herd, and you can see a vehicle in the middle of it over there on the bottom right. And as we got closer, they just milled around us. They didn't seem bothered by us. They have one big guard off to the side, the big bull guards off to the side, and if something scares him, he'll trumpet. We didn't hear any of that. We didn't scare him. But by the time we left, I think there were 4 vehicles here, 4 or 5. They're super cool. They're fun to watch. And they were just eating and roaming. And then this is Berna's favorite.
My favorite. The zebras.
Baby zebra.
Yeah. And there's little baby ones, and then the one on the right's a mama, and then the one up there looks pregnant to me on the left, upper left. And we saw them in the Serengeti, and we saw them down in the crater. And then we saw herds of them. I mean, it's not like you see 1 or 2 like you would in our reserves where we keep our population small. They're big herds, 40, 50 of them.
Verna, are they black with white stripes or white with black stripes?
That's a good question. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, we talked about that last
Yes,
week,
we
so. But yeah, it's just fun, and you never know what you're gonna encounter. And you'll see bumps, and we're like trying to guess, and the guide's like, oh, those are definitely this or that. And you're like, how do you know? He's like, yeah, well, the shapes, and wildebeest, this was wildebeest migration time. By the time we left, after we left, there were supposed to be something like 10 million gathered. So if you think of the buffalo back in our history in America, where they talk about the buffalo stretching from Canada down to Mexico, in gathering, that's what this was. And the wildebeests are very, very buffalo-like in the way their bodies are, and so I didn't hear anywhere, I haven't read anything, but it was very easy to see that they could be predecessors to our American buffalo, the bison, because they have a similar shape, they have similar migration patterns, they have similar water needs. They're not huge, they don't need huge waters, and they reserve water in their bodies. There were tons of them. And I could not find my one picture I had a big skyline to skyline, which this kind of shows, but it's not the depth. I have another one, but this is really like a span of, if it's 7 miles to 7 miles, I was told that one time as a kid, to the horizon. This was easily beyond that, and then there's another herd clear at the top there that goes exactly the same length, and so there's more than one. These are just different groups that haven't melded yet, but there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them, and we were just seeing the beginning of that migration. We're going to talk about, okay, Olduvai Gorge is where the oldest, this is a replica of the oldest found human remains at that time. This one's like, I think I did not write it on here. I think it's like 2 something million years old. So when you approach the gorge, you see this, there's a bathroom here. So when you're out in the world, you have to find bathrooms, and they have a decent bathroom here. So we stopped. This is the hominid and the hominoid. I think those are the right words. And the difference is pre-protein and post-protein. So originally humans, as we hear in the Garden of Eden story, were all vegetarian. And then they introduced to themselves meat. And as they gained protein through meat, they got bigger and stronger, and their cortexes changed. Their prefrontal cortex got bigger, and they became more like we are. And so the bottom left is the actual gorge where the Leakeys worked for 26 years before they found this ancient skull. But they had found tools and things that they had dated. And they still work on the gorge to find things. They have a beautiful, beautiful welcome center with great bathrooms. And there was a place you could buy stuff, but it was really, it felt reverent to me. And the guide, I talked to him, yeah, I don't have more pictures of this. The guy that I talked to, the guide who was telling us about the museum and stuff, I asked him, I said, do these primitive vegetarians still exist? And he said, yes. He said, they have been tried to be moved out by the British government several times, and they keep migrating back to their spot. And I said, well, do they, because they are nonviolent, they don't kill for food, right? I said, do they have a different spirituality? Because I really think there's a thing about, you know, we talk about killing time. We use words that are violent all the time in our language because it's normalized that we kill things and we eat meat and we take life to sustain ourselves. But he said, you'd have to talk to them. They don't let other people talk about their spirituality. And I thought that was interesting, you know, so kind of more of an Anabaptist, pacifist way of being, but they still live off the land and do that kind of lifestyle. So I found that intriguing. And they are still a tribe that is pretty unto themselves. He said you can go in with permission and spend time with them, but they keep unto themselves so that they're not inundated with people who ply them with things that would change them. So, but I found that super cool. Then we met the Maasai. Do you want to talk about this? Yeah.
Well, again, they dance for us. They always present you with music. Their huts, oh my goodness. You go inside their huts,
Yeah.
and you feel, oh my God, if you are claustrophobic, which I am, it is very difficult to sit in there because maybe
this far apart,
Yes.
the whole house.
the whole
Yeah.
house.
And this house, with that bedroom and one on to the left, it was the same size, and then this is the dining area, the family
Right.
area, housed 5 people. Yeah.
And they do everything in there. I mean, how they sleep, I have no idea.
Sex and babies and food making and all of it. I mean, it all happens right there together. It's not dirty or it's just part of nature.
Right.
You know, it's part of who they are. So
And then the girls, they carry all of their food and things that they need. But those huts are just unbelievable how they can manage to live in there and survive. That's the main thing. Survival is just unreal.
and
They look like Hogans.
they do look like Hogans, and they're called a boma. And here, up on the left, when they met us, they were doing, so part of what they are doing, they are allowed to stay in this reserve area by governmental permission. And part of their way of working with the world is to present to people like us who are visitors. So our company paid them something to give us a tour, show us their homes, show us their school. And you can see up on the left, so I made sure and got a picture. Do you see the knife hanging down? They all carry a knife and a walking stick. See his knife right up there? And they all had that. Even the women had it. And they dance for us, but their shoes are a mixture of current tires, like they take car tires that are no good, and they use those instead of the old goat hide that they used to use because, again, they have this product around them, and so they're like, this is a better material than what we have been using, and it lasts longer and it keeps the heat off. And again, I find them an incredible mixture of primitive and modern day because they carry cell phones, but they're out and they're only weapon of choice is their stick and their knife, you know, they don't. Yeah, it's just unique, and they're everywhere, like they're near towns, they're far away, but they have, these guys specifically have permission to live out in the Serengeti that is a protected area, and they can eat their traditional foods. If they need to kill an elephant, they can kill an elephant, but, yeah, it was pretty interesting. This is the parish we went to then the next weekend or second weekend. This was a Maasai congregation is what they called themselves. They're Lutheran, they practice Lutheranism, but they definitely have all the Maasai influence. Go ahead, you can.
The amazing thing about this is the garb. Of course, you know, being a seamstress, these are the things that I notice most of all. But the garb that the ladies wore, these were ladies were in the choir. And the little girls in the middle picture were part of the congregation, but I just thought that they stuck out to me. Here they are in their beautiful little dresses, and then their mothers or sisters or whoever in the choir had all these other things on. I don't know how they mix all that together.
Well, you see Western and you see
Right,
Christian, yeah.
yeah. And pastor was able to give them communion, is in the right-hand, top right-hand corner, I think it is.
Yeah, that's me.
Giving them communion, but the two gentlemen in the middle were some of the gentlemen with our group, and they had been dressed in the Maasai garb, as you can see, like we all were. We
Yeah.
all gifted those Maasai wraps, I guess you would call them. But yeah, they not only wear the wrap, but they also wear a skirt, and it's just amazing how they mix it all up together. Sequins, I don't know, it's just amazing how they do all of that.
They don't do patterns like we do.
No. And back to the Maasai that we were visiting in that village, they also make things and they will sell those to you while you're there. So they make a little profit off of it, but how they use that money, I have no idea. We don't know what they do there.
Maybe to pay for electricity or running water, or, yeah. Isabel.
If you could, would you donate any cloth to them to like make new dresses?
Cloth, they are master makers of cloth. And we went there and Verna bought like 475 yards of cloth.
Not really.
She bought a lot of cloth. Because, do you know what batik is? It's like tie-dye, only it has patterns in it that they do with wax. They do a lot of batik work, and their weaving often has patterns in it. So when they weave their threads, they have patterns in it.
They're very good handy workers. They work with their hands very well, and fabric is great over there.
Yeah. So they have their fabric's actually probably nicer than much of our fabric that is shipped in from a factory. But that's a good question. The other thing I wanted to say about this was I didn't know I was going to help at all. So in the middle of the service, the pastor says, "You want to help with communion?" I'm like, "Sure." So we go up, and I think I told you that they didn't have enough communion prepared. So we were back behind the pulpit, and they were filling cups and washing them and handing them back, and we were running out. Vernon took a picture of the communion rail there. All of their rails that we saw, and we saw several churches, had the metal work, and then they almost all have that plastic bunting that is, they think, pretty, I think. So, and this was a smaller church, I think, than what we had seen other places. This is the banana market, and so I found this, and I think most of us found this pretty incredible. So every Thursday, yeah, they gather together and they bring in all of these big bundles of bananas. And if you think of each one of these banana bundles as like from Verna to me, with rows and rows that naturally grow on a tree, they cut them down. The women carry them on their heads. You see that on the upper left. They're just tons of bananas, and physically tons of bananas, and they sell all of them by the end of the day. They walk around and they look for the ones they think are good. They go find the seller of that, and they barter and trade and argue about price, and then they load them into big trucks and take them to the ports or take them wherever they're going, and they ship them off. So fluctuations in prices start right here. And this was like probably a mile and a half worth of road. And then, like you see this green lawn space up above, this is a parking lot. And then you could go behind and into the buildings, and every square inch of, like, I don't even know how far back it went up the mountain, was covered with vendors. And some of them had platforms and roofs, some of them just sat on the dirt ground. They sold everything from silverware to jewelry to food to leather goods to cloth to shoes to anything you can think of. This is where you would go. This is the Walmart of, because it was supposed to be cheaper than going to like a regular convenience store in town. But just a fantastic amount of noise. There's people making music. There's buskers, you know, with little pots out for coins. And there was also radios and just a phenomenal sense of gala, but also seriousness, right? You don't go in there, and they said, watch your purses. This is good for pickpockets. Don't let them take your, but I mean, holy schmoly, people. I mean, if we, you know, we had to kind of, at one point I was touching Verna and she was touching Mary, and, you know, to make sure we could weave through people. They were that tight in places. So it was pretty fantastic. Yeah. And then we went from this to the quiet Mawiki Bible College. Yeah.
I think we get most of our bananas from South America, and they're having trouble with some sort of
Bug.
infestation.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you hear anything? Are they having trouble in Africa with that?
Not that we heard of 2 months ago, yeah.
Well, nothing was said.
No, there was no comments about that at all.
Do you know where, do they mostly export to?
I have no idea, I didn't ask that question, sorry. And then this was the final slide I made you. This was the upper right one is out of our hotel room. The bottom left one was when we were driving. This is just pictures of Mount Kilimanjaro. We saw it covered in clouds, we saw it uncovered, and then this is Verna. We had gone on a walk on a country road when we were at our parish, and this was her that day. But yeah, it was really fun, and we got to see so much. Oh, you brought your shirt. I didn't think of that. Okay, you need to hold things up and you can talk about it.
That was about the shirt was given to us by the parish that we visited.
And Karibu means hello, welcome.
Welcome, and this is my, here it is, Caribou. I have it hanging in my basement. It says welcome. And this was my card from the safari drivers that we talked about last week. From Frank, Happy Life, Verna, Innocent. There was a driver named Innocent as well as the one that we stayed with. Happy birthday, BB. It's spelled B-I-B-I. God bless BB. Happy birthday, Verna. Many more years, John. Edmund was another one. Happy birthday. So yeah, it was not my birthday yet, but it was going to be the next week when I got home. So they all knew that. But these are also some of the goods that they make over there, and this is, whoops. This is quite a,
This is on carved.
yes, it's all one of the necklaces that they give you, a bracelet, and also a cross that they always make sure that you have a cross.
This was from the Swahili parish.
Yes. So when you want to tell people thank you, you say asante. If you want to say thank you very much, you say asante sane. So those are the three things that I came back with: was caribou, asante sane.
And Jumbo.
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 Jumbo, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's a song they sing.
Right.
And yeah, so we gathered some things. There's tea back there from us today, and it was just super incredible. And we learned so much, which was really fantastic. So thank you for helping us go and promoting us being part of that. I do need to run up, but yeah.
How did the money exchange go between you buying stuff and whatnot? How did
That was easy. So when we got to the airport, we found a, was this the one where we did that? Was that Greece? We did it in the airport? No, Martin did this for us.
Marty took it to the bank.
Mark, yeah. So we had like how much we wanted to exchange, he took it and then we just paid in shillings. So, yeah. Yes.
How does their money compare to ours?
Ours is worth more, so when you buy $1's worth of their money, when you trade it, it's 500 of their dollars. Yeah.
I want to go there now. I'll be rich.
But things cost more because it's a different economy. Yeah. Other questions or thoughts? Oh, Verna brought some of her shillings. I didn't think to bring anything today, I really bombed.
These are the shillings, and I think I have about $40 worth here, 40 American dollars. But you see, they're 10,000 is what it looks like. So their money is just so different. You have to figure out, okay, what is this? How much am I going to spend on this?
What did I just do? I emptied my bank account.
Exactly.
10,000. What does 10,000 mean?
That was the way it was in Hungary too.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah, so it's, well, I've got some money to go back with, I guess. I
yeah,
don't know if I will, but
10,000,
we will see.
$2.
Any other questions before I head? Verna can still answer. Okay. I'm gonna take my computer up because
Oh, yes,
I won't
that's
forget.
fine.
Okay.